It was an ordinary morning in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of morning where everything seemed perfectly normal. Birds chirping, the occasional car passing by, and the comforting hum of everyday life. Alex had just pulled into a spot on Maplewood Street, a street they'd parked on countless times without a single incident. Their car, an older model sedan, was nothing special, just a reliable vehicle for getting from place to place. Nothing to draw attention to it. Nothing to make it stand out. Or so Alex thought. As Alex gathered their things from the passenger seat, a sudden feeling prickled at the back of their neck. They turned, half expecting to see the usual jogger or dog walker passing by. But instead, a woman stood several yards away, her eyes locked onto their car with an intensity that immediately felt off. Her expression wasn't just one of casual observation. It was like she was staring through the car, as if it held some dark secret only she could see. The woman's eyes were sharp, her features pinched with frustration. She looked around the street as though she was waiting for something or someone. Alex hesitated. Had they accidentally parked too close to a driveway? Or was there some other neighborhood rule they'd missed? The street was narrow, but the space seemed legal enough. Yet, something in the woman's gaze told Alex this wasn't just about a parking violation. After a long moment of silent staring, the woman finally snapped her gaze toward Alex. "You can't park there," she called out, her voice tight with irritation. "You need to move your car. Right now." The words felt like a demand, not a request. Alex blinked in confusion. "It's not blocking anyone's driveway," they said, trying to remain calm. "I've parked here before. I think it's fine." But the woman didn't seem to care about the reasoning. She took a step closer, her stance rigid. "I don't care what you think," she snapped. "Move your car. It's causing a problem." Alex, now beginning to feel a surge of irritation, glanced around the quiet street. There was no one else in sight. No signs indicating any restriction. What problem? Alex asked, trying to understand what was going on. "I'm not blocking anything." The woman didn't answer. Instead, she whipped out her phone, her fingers moving with rapid precision. Her eyes flicked up to meet Alex again, a strange glint in her gaze, as if she had just made a decision. "I'm calling a tow truck. Your car is getting towed, whether you like it or not." The words hit Alex like a slap. They had dealt with parking issues before, but this was absurd. "Are you serious? For parking here?" She didn't respond. Her gaze was already back on her phone, dialing the towing company with deliberate slowness. Alex felt the tension rise. Something didn't feel right. Why was she so obsessed with getting the car towed? It wasn't like it was blocking anything, and it wasn't even an eyesore. What could this woman possibly have against a parked car? Before Alex could protest further, the tow truck appeared, its rumbling engine shaking the calm of the morning. It came around the corner, a huge hulking beast of a truck, ready to take the car away as though it were some forgotten relic. The driver, a middle-aged man with a face that gave away no emotion, swung his door open and stepped out, his eyes already scanning the scene. But it wasn't just the tow truck that caught Alex's attention. No, it was the black SUV that followed just behind it, gliding to a stop without a sound. The vehicle's tinted windows blocked any view inside, but Alex couldn't shake the growing sense that something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just a simple parking dispute. There was something far more intense unfolding right before them. Then, the strangers stepped out. Alex's heart raced as they stared at the black SUV. The two men who stepped out were dressed in suits. Dark, well-tailored, and far too formal for a mundane parking dispute. The faintest glint of metal caught Alex's eye as one of the men adjusted the holster beneath his jacket. That was when Alex realized these weren't ordinary men. These were FBI agents. The tow truck driver, already halfway through the process of attaching Alex's car to the lift, glanced nervously toward the two newcomers. The truck's engine hummed loudly, but the world around Alex seemed to have slowed down. The driver's hands trembled slightly as he worked, his motions deliberate but unsteady. It was like he knew something was wrong too, but wasn't sure how to stop it. The men in suits, one taller, with dark hair and a stern expression, the other shorter, with a scar running across his cheek, advanced toward the scene with purpose, their footsteps synchronized. They didn't even glance at the tow truck or the car. Their eyes were fixed on Karen, who was standing a few feet away, her arms crossed tightly, as if bracing herself for what was about to unfold. "Step away from the vehicle," the taller agent commanded in a voice that brooked no argument. His gaze never wavered from Karen. Karen didn't flinch. In fact, she seemed to be expecting this moment, as though it had been planned. Her lips twisted into a faint smile, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Alex watched, confused and increasingly unnerved, as Karen remained silent. Why wasn't she reacting like someone who had just seen federal agents on her street? Why did she look almost relieved? Alex opened their mouth to speak, but the shorter agent turned his piercing gaze onto them, cutting them off. "You," the agent began, pointing at Alex with a sharp finger. "Step over here, please." The chill in the air thickened. The hairs on the back of Alex's neck stood on end. What was going on? Why was the FBI here? And why was Karen so calm? Alex hesitated, taking a few slow steps toward the agents, their pulse quickening with each movement. As they approached, the taller agent spoke again, his voice colder than before. "This card," he said, his eyes sweeping over Alex's vehicle with scrutiny, "is part of an ongoing investigation. I need you to come with us for questioning." Alex's stomach dropped. Part of an investigation. They didn't even know what to say. This was a mistake. It had to be. They were just a regular person, running errands on a lazy morning. How could their car be part of some investigation? The agent's sharp stare only deepened their anxiety. "What is this about?" Alex finally managed to ask, voice shaky. "I don't understand. I didn't do anything wrong." The agent's lips barely twitched into a semblance of a smile, but it wasn't reassuring. "We'll explain everything shortly. But for now, you'll need to cooperate. Please don't make this harder than it has to be." The shorter agent moved closer, his eyes scanning the area like a hawk, his posture rigid. As if to confirm that Alex wasn't the only one caught in this strange web, the taller agent turned to Karen again, his tone more measured now. "You knew about this vehicle?" he asked, the question layered with suspicion. Karen's gaze shifted for the first time, but she didn't speak right away. The tension between her and the agents was palpable, and Alex could see the weight of the moment on her face. Was Karen in on this? Had she called the FBI? Or was she somehow involved in the reason the agents were here? "Karen," the taller agent pressed. "Tell us what you know." But Karen just stood there, the faintest hint of a smirk playing at the corner of her lips, before she finally said, "I've been trying to do the right thing." Her words were slow, careful, as if she was choosing each one with intent. "The car's been flagged." Alex's head spun. Flagged? What the hell did that mean? Before the agent could respond, a third figure emerged from the shadows of the street. A figure that made Alex's blood run cold. Another SUV, even darker than the first, rolled up behind the tow truck. The door opened slowly, and out stepped another man, this one dressed in a sharp suit but with a different air about him. He wasn't like the FBI agents. He was far too relaxed, too confident. Alex's heart sank. This man's presence didn't seem like a coincidence. "Not so fast." The man called out in a voice that was smooth but dangerous. He was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that made Alex's skin crawl. "I believe we have unfinished business." The man in the sharp suit, his expression cool, yet predatory, slowly closed the distance between himself and the scene, his eyes flicking between Alex, Karen, and the two FBI agents. The air around them seemed to thicken with each step he took. Alex's pulse hammered in their ears, as if their heart was trying to break free from their chest. Who was this guy? And why was he suddenly here, interrupting what had already become the most bizarre moment of their life? The FBI agents didn't react immediately. They simply stood still, their gazes narrowing at the new arrival. There was an unspoken tension between the two groups, a silent exchange that spoke volumes without a word being said. It was clear to Alex that this wasn't an ordinary parking dispute, nor was it just a random criminal investigation. No, something far more complex was at play here. The man in the suit smiled, the expression unsettlingly calm. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, Agent Grayson," he said, addressing the taller of the two FBI agents. His voice was smooth, like velvet, but there was a chilling edge beneath it. "This is no longer your case." Agent Grayson's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. His partner, the shorter agent, stayed a step back, observing the interaction with a level of caution that didn't go unnoticed by Alex. "Who are you?" Agent Grayson demanded, his tone flat but firm. He had the look of someone who wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by people outside his jurisdiction. The man chuckled softly, a sound that sent a ripple of unease through the group. "You can call me Donovan," he said casually, "and I'm afraid I represent interests a bit higher than the FBI's." A chill ran down Alex's spine. Higher than the FBI? They echoed incredulously. What was this guy implying? Was he some kind of government official? Or something worse? Agent Grayson stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "This car is part of an ongoing investigation. We'll handle it from here," he said firmly, his voice hardening. But Donovan only smirked, unfazed by the statement. "I'm afraid you misunderstand," he said, eyes flashing with a dangerous gleam. "You were handling it. But now, this is my operation, and you're in my way." The tension snapped like a wire stretched too tight. Alex could feel the hairs on the back of their neck standing on end. The situation had escalated quickly. What had started as an absurd parking issue had transformed into a high-stakes showdown. And Alex had no idea where they fit into this mess. Donovan's gaze shifted to Karen. It was subtle, but the change in his demeanor was noticeable. His eyes softened ever so slightly, the smirk fading into something more calculating. "You've done well," he said to her, his voice dripping with praise. "You've been very helpful." Karen didn't respond right away. She simply stood there, staring at the ground, her lips pressed tightly together. Was she afraid? Or was she just trying to hide something? Alex couldn't tell. Agent Grayson, clearly frustrated, clenched his fists at his sides. "Karen," he barked. "What did you tell them? What's going on?" Karen raised her eyes slowly, but her gaze wasn't focused on Grayson. It was fixed on Alex. Her eyes were cold, distant, and for the first time, Alex noticed something that hadn't been clear before. Fear. The woman who had seemed so confident earlier was now visibly unsettled. Karen finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had to. You have no idea what's been going on. No one does." Alex's stomach twisted. "What's going on?" They demanded, their voice rising despite their better judgment. "What's all of this about? Why is everyone so obsessed with my car?" For a moment, Karen said nothing. But then, in a voice barely audible, she muttered, "You don't understand. Your car wasn't supposed to be here. It wasn't supposed to be this car. But now the FBI thinks it's all part of something much bigger." Alex's mind spun. Something bigger. But what could that possibly mean? What did this have to do with them? And why had Karen, of all people, been involved? Donovan's smile returned, but it wasn't comforting. "You really don't know what you've stumbled into, do you, Alex?" he said, his tone taunting, almost amused. "You're just a pawn in a much larger game. And unfortunately for you, you're stuck right in the middle of it." The silence that followed Donovan's words felt suffocating. Alex's thoughts raced, but their mind couldn't quite piece together the chaos that had unfolded in the last few minutes. They were caught in the middle of something much larger than a simple parking dispute, something far more sinister. And yet, despite the swirling questions in their head, the most pressing one remained unanswered. Why was their car so important? Karen stood off to the side, her posture rigid, but her eyes flicked nervously between Alex and the FBI agents. She wasn't saying anything else, but her earlier calm demeanor had completely evaporated. Now she looked like someone who was trapped in her own web of lies. Agent Grayson's eyes narrowed, his patience clearly wearing thin. "You're going to have to explain yourself, Karen," he said, his voice sharp. "You've been feeding us misinformation from the start. This car isn't just some ordinary vehicle. We need answers." But Karen only shook her head, her lips trembling. "I didn't want this to happen. I didn't think it would go this far." Alex's stomach churned. This was worse than they'd ever imagined. The FBI, Donovan, and now Karen were all tangled in some bizarre, high-stakes game, and they were stuck in the middle. "Explain what, exactly?" Alex asked, their voice tight with frustration. "What's going on here? Why are you involved in all this?" Karen's eyes darted to the ground, as if searching for the right words. "I didn't have a choice," she murmured. "They were going to use me. The criminals. They said I could either help them or they'd make sure my life was ruined. They didn't leave me an option." Donovan, standing off to the side, chuckled darkly, his arms crossed. "Karen's got a lot more to answer for than she's letting on," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "But I'm not here for her. Not today." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Donovan wasn't interested in Karen. He was interested in something much bigger. Alex felt a knot tighten in their chest. Whatever Karen had gotten mixed up in, it wasn't just about her. It was about Alex now, too. "Listen carefully, Alex," Donovan continued, his gaze never leaving them. "Your car is involved in something much bigger than any of us. You've unknowingly walked into a very dangerous situation. You've been using this vehicle, and that makes you part of an ongoing investigation into an international trafficking operation. It's not just stolen goods. This is about illegal technology, high-end electronics, and weapon shipments. And your car? Well, it was the perfect cover for moving these things across state lines without detection." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. "Wait," Alex stammered, shaking their head. "This doesn't make sense. My car has nothing to do with any of that." Donovan raised an eyebrow, his smirk never fading. "No one's ever really paid attention to the details, Alex. That's why this operation has worked so well. You weren't supposed to be involved, not at first. But when the car was swapped out..." He trailed off, letting the weight of his words sink in. Alex's confusion deepened. Swapped out? What was he talking about? Was this all some twisted mistake? Were they truly part of an international crime ring without even knowing it? "You see," Donovan continued, his voice cold, "this car wasn't always yours. At least, not originally. It was brought in by a group of smugglers who knew exactly how to blend it in. They swapped it with another, one that had already been marked for something far more dangerous. When you bought it, you unknowingly became part of a much larger operation. Your car. It's a perfect conduit for moving classified material across borders without anyone asking questions." Alex's brain felt like it was on fire. It was impossible to process all of this. How could something so simple, so mundane, become so entwined in an international conspiracy? Agent Grayson stepped forward, clearly agitated. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, shaking his head. "We've been following this case for months. We had no idea it was tied to this vehicle, not until a tip came through about it showing up in your possession." Alex looked at him, desperate for any kind of clarity. "A tip? What does that even mean? How did my car get involved in all of this? I don't understand." Donovan's cold smile never faltered. "You don't need to understand all the details, Alex. Not yet. What matters is that you're a piece in a very large puzzle. And now that you're involved, well, let's just say you've attracted the wrong kind of attention. The reality of the situation hit Alex like a wave of ice water. They were in over their head, and every person standing around them was either part of a bigger plan or simply trying to make sure they didn't become the fall guy. The world around Alex seemed to close in on them. The heat from the two SUVs, the looming FBI agents, and the ominous figure of Donovan all felt suffocating. They tried to process the information, but it was as if their brain couldn't keep up with the growing tension. A car swap, international trafficking, classified technology. How was it even possible that they were now a part of all of this? Donovan's sharp gaze never left Alex. He leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "You're not just a victim here, Alex. You're the key." The words stung. They'd always thought of themselves as an ordinary person, someone who simply followed the rules, paid taxes, and tried to get by. This whole ordeal was too far out of their league, and yet here they were, caught in a game that was bigger than they could comprehend. The worst part, the realization that they had no idea who they could trust. Was Karen involved in this somehow, or was she just as much a pawn as Alex? And Donovan? He was clearly playing a game, but whose side was he on? Alex turned to Karen, their voice trembling. You knew all this time and didn't tell me." Karen flinched at the accusation, her face drained of color. She opened her mouth as though to explain, but the words seemed stuck, caught between guilt and fear. Finally, she spoke, but her voice was so quiet that Alex almost didn't hear it. "I didn't have a choice, Alex. You don't understand. They had someone on the inside. Someone close to me." Her eyes darted toward Donovan, and Alex could see the fear that flickered behind her defiant front. "Someone on the inside," Alex repeated, their mind racing. What does that even mean? Before Karen could answer, Donovan cut in, his voice smooth as ever. "It means, Alex, that you're a part of something much bigger than you realize. Your car wasn't just swapped, it was targeted. Smugglers knew exactly what they were doing. They used it to move sensitive equipment without ever raising a flag. That's how this whole operation has been running under the radar." Alex's head swirled with questions. But why me? Why was I chosen? Donovan's smile faltered, replaced by a look of cold calculation. "You weren't exactly chosen. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The car fell into your hands purely by accident, but now that it's here, it's too valuable to let go. And we can't afford to let you walk away unscathed." A chill ran down Alex's spine. Unscathed. The realization hit them harder than anything else. They weren't just tangled in some innocent misunderstanding. They were a pawn in a larger, more dangerous game, one that they had no control over. The taller FBI agent, Agent Grayson, suddenly spoke, his voice laced with tension. "We have to move now. If this operation is tied to the technology we think it is, there's no time to waste." Donovan glanced over at him, his smirk never fading. "You think you're in control of this, Agent Grayson? I'm afraid you're mistaken. This game's already been played. You're just catching up." A sharp, metallic click interrupted the conversation. The sound came from behind Alex, and they turned just in time to see two men in tactical gear emerge from the second SUV. They were armed and moved with military precision, scanning the area as they approached. The air suddenly felt thick with hostility. "Move," one of the men barked. This is now a federal operation. The tension broke, and everything shifted in an instant. Alex felt a hand on their shoulder, pushing them forward. "You're coming with us," Donovan said, his voice cold, no room for argument. "What's going to happen to me?" Alex demanded, trying to break free from the grip. Their heart hammered against their ribs as panic set in. "What happens now?" Donovan's eyes locked onto theirs, his expression unreadable. "You'll do exactly as you're told. Otherwise." He trailed off, letting the threat hang in the air. "You don't want to find out what happens then." Alex swallowed hard, the weight of the situation bearing down on them. Every instinct screamed at them to run, to escape, but they couldn't. Not now. Not with so much at stake. Their car, once a simple tool for getting from place to place, had now become a symbol of something far more dangerous. As the tactical agents flanked them, guiding them toward one of the black SUVs, Alex caught a glimpse of Karen's face. Her eyes were filled with regret, but also something else, something darker, something that Alex couldn't quite place. Donovan's voice interrupted their thoughts. "Don't worry, Alex. We'll get you to where you need to be. The rest of the details will unfold soon enough. All you need to do is stay out of trouble." The door of the SUV slammed shut behind them, the world outside disappearing in an instant. Alex sat in the back seat, the car's dark interior closing around them like a tomb. The realization finally hit. This wasn't about a car anymore. It was about survival. And Alex had just been thrust into a game where the stakes were higher than they could ever have imagined. The SUV's engine hummed steadily, its tires gliding over the pavement as Alex was carried further into the unknown. The world outside the window blurred into a dull, colorless smear. Inside the vehicle, everything felt too quiet, too controlled, except for the racing thoughts in Alex's mind. They couldn't stop replaying Donovan's words, the cold finality in his voice. "You'll do exactly as you're told, or else." The pressure in their chest tightened with each passing second. Alex tried to make sense of it all. What had they stumbled into? The car, the FBI, Donovan's involvement, Karen's strange silence. It all felt like a puzzle with pieces that didn't quite fit together. How had a simple car turned into a key piece of an international operation? What had they gotten mixed up in? And most importantly, why were they so important? The black SUV turned sharply, signaling that they were leaving the main road. Alex glanced out of the corner of their eye at the men seated across from them. Two tactical agents, their faces stern and unreadable. They hadn't said a word since the vehicle had started moving, but their presence was enough to make Alex feel like an animal trapped in a cage. The silent tension made the air feel thick, heavy, as if the very atmosphere was laced with secrets. "Where are we going?" Alex finally demanded, unable to stay silent any longer. The question had been eating away at them, and they couldn't take the oppressive silence any longer. The agent closest to them, broad-shouldered and cold-eyed, didn't even look up. "You'll know soon enough." Alex's heart sank. Soon enough was not good enough. They were beyond the point of vague assurances. They needed answers, and they needed them now. "Is this a joke?" Alex pressed, trying to keep their voice steady despite the rising panic. "Why is this happening? What's the point of all of this? Who are you people really?" The agent remained motionless, his jaw clenched tight. But it was Donovan's voice that answered, cutting through the thick silence with that unnervingly calm tone. "You're asking questions that can't be answered, Alex. Not yet, but trust me, the truth will come out. And when it does, you won't believe what you were a part of. Until then," his voice dropped to a chilling whisper, "stay out of trouble." Alex's stomach twisted. The tone in Donovan's voice was almost knowing, as if Alex had already walked into a trap they hadn't even realized. It was clear now. This wasn't just some random chain of events. Alex had been deliberately dragged into this, and they were no longer in control. The vehicle took another sharp turn, and suddenly, the lights of the city were gone. They were driving through dark, empty streets, the shadows swallowing everything in sight. Alex's pulse quickened as they glanced out the window. The buildings around them were older, derelict even, with cracked windows and rusting fences. It felt like they were entering a part of the city that didn't belong to the public eye, a place where secrets were kept, and eyes were never meant to see. "What is this place?" Alex whispered, their voice trembling, but the question fell on deaf ears. The agent beside them didn't flinch. Neither did Donovan, who was sitting in the front seat, his face hidden in the shadows. The vehicle slowed as it approached a large steel gate. A guard tower loomed above, its harsh spotlight sweeping over the road like a watchful eye. Alex's breath caught in their throat as the SUV stopped at a checkpoint. The window rolled down, and a guard with a machine gun gave a curt nod to Donovan. The gate creaked open, revealing a fortified compound behind it, more like a military facility than a typical building. This wasn't just a hideout. This was a place where secrets were stored, where information was guarded, and where things were far too dangerous to be seen by the public eye. As they crossed the threshold, Alex's heart raced even faster. This was real. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a coincidence. They were about to learn something that could shatter their entire perception of the world. And the worst part, they still had no idea who to trust. The SUV parked in front of a massive steel door. The agents got out without a word, their movements efficient and mechanical, as if they had done this countless times before. Donovan was the last to step out, his eyes scanning the area with a predatory gleam. He turned back toward Alex, his voice soft but chilling. "Welcome to the real world, Alex," Donovan said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Things are about to get very interesting." The steel door loomed ahead, like the mouth of a beast ready to swallow them whole. Alex's breath caught in their throat as the two agents led them out of the SUV, their footsteps echoing off the cold, hard concrete beneath them. Every instinct screamed for them to run, to turn and sprint into the night, to escape before they were pulled further into whatever madness this was. But their feet felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed by both fear and the crushing weight of confusion. Donovan followed behind them, his presence a looming shadow, as though he was some kind of puppeteer pulling their strings without them even knowing the extent of his control. The door opened slowly, creaking like something ancient, revealing a stark, dimly lit hallway lined with steel walls that reflected the dull glow of flickering fluorescent lights above. The air felt thick, musty, as if it hadn't been disturbed in ages. Alex tried to steady their breath, forcing themselves to take each step one at a time, though every movement felt sluggish, like they were wading through an unseen fog. Behind them, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud, making the walls tremble. It felt as though they had crossed some invisible line, one that once passed. There was no return. They were trapped. "Welcome to the facility," Donovan's voice echoed, colder than the chill in the air. "Everything you need to know will be revealed in time." Alex turned sharply. "What do you mean, everything? What is this place? What's going on?" But Donovan's eyes were already scanning the hallway ahead, ignoring their question with a casualness that only intensified Alex's growing anxiety. "Just follow the path," he said, as though they were being led to something more important than their immediate survival. The further they walked, the more oppressive the environment became. The walls were lined with metal doors, each one marked with unmarked labels, many of which were locked with codes that Alex couldn't even begin to decipher. But what sent an icy spike of dread through them was the distant sound, low and rhythmic, coming from somewhere deep inside the building. It was hard to place, but there was something unnerving about it. It sounded like whispers. Suddenly, one of the agents stopped in front of a steel door, entering a code into the keypad beside it. The door slid open silently, revealing a sterile room filled with advanced-looking equipment. But it wasn't the machines that caught Alex's attention. It was the people, or rather, the figures seated at the long table in the center of the room, their faces partially obscured by the low lighting, their eyes locked onto Alex. Without warning, the door shut behind them, and the agents ushered Alex forward into the cold, clinical room. Alex's heart raced. These were not ordinary people. They were something more. Their presence was too deliberate, too calculating. And one person, seated at the head of the table, leaned forward, his eyes piercing through Alex's confusion. "I assume you're Alex," he said, his voice smooth, clipped. Alex nodded stiffly, unsure of what to do. what to say. "Good," the man said. "You've just entered the first phase of your involvement. You've been chosen because you are the key to something far greater than you realize." The words hung in the air like a weight too heavy to bear. Alex could feel the temperature drop, a chill creeping along their spine. Key. The word had been used before, by Donovan, but hearing it in this context felt like it was finally dawning on them. This wasn't just about the car, or the smuggling, or the FBI. This was something else entirely, something deeper, and they had unwittingly become entangled in it. "Do you know why you're here, Alex?" the man continued, leaning forward as though he was about to share a secret. "You are here because your life has intersected with something special. Your car, the people who've manipulated it, the operation. It's all part of a much larger system, a system that's been in play for decades." Alex's mind spun, unable to keep up with the barrage of cryptic statements. What system? What does this have to do with me? A slow smile spread across the man's face. It was unsettling, like a predator toying with its prey. "What we're doing here, Alex, is nothing less than a global operation to control the flow of critical technology. Technology that could change the world. And you, my friend, are sitting at the very heart of it." Donovan stepped forward now, his voice low. "You see, Alex, the car was never the real point. The real point was making sure the technology inside it got to the right people. And now that it's in your possession, there's only one thing left to do." He paused for dramatic effect. "You need to decide whether you'll play along, or whether you'll resist." Alex felt a chill, as if the world had suddenly tilted on its axis. There was no way out, no way to escape the spiderweb they were trapped in. They were a part of something global now, something so vast and so dangerous that every choice they made could tip the balance in ways they couldn't predict. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on Alex with each passing second. The man at the head of the table continued to watch them with that unsettling smile, as though he could see through every ounce of doubt and fear swirling in Alex's mind. Donovan, standing off to the side, remained silent, watching intently, as if this moment was one he'd been waiting for. Alex's heart hammered in their chest, but beneath the panic, something else was slowly surfacing, a flicker of realization. This wasn't just a simple choice. What was on the table here wasn't merely about following orders or defying them. It was a matter of survival, a matter of controlling their own fate in a situation where every move seemed like it could be their last. "You need to understand something," the man at the head of the table continued, his voice cold and calculating. "You're not like everyone else. Alex, you have been chosen because you're uniquely positioned to make an impact. You're already involved whether you like it or not. The choice you have now is about how far you want to go." "Go," Alex repeated, their voice hoarse. "Go where? What are you asking me to do?" The man leaned forward, his gaze never wavering. "We have the power to alter the course of entire industries, nations, even history itself. The technology we control isn't just cutting edge, it's world-changing. And you, Alex, are going to help us ensure that the right hands get it." Alex blinked, struggling to process the gravity of the words. World-changing. This wasn't about smuggling or secret deals anymore. This was about something far more significant, something that could reshape everything they thought they knew about the world. "You think you're in control of this, but you're not." Alex shot back, desperation creeping into their voice. "You're all just playing a game with lives. Mine. Everyone's. What you're asking me to do, it's wrong." The man at the table smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. "Right or wrong, Alex, doesn't matter. You'll learn that soon enough. It's about power. Who has it? Who controls it? And right now, you are in a position to decide how it's used." Alex felt the weight of the room pressing down on them. The truth was more staggering than anything they'd ever imagined. They were no longer a bystander. They were a part of something massive, a force much greater than themselves, The question now was, what could they do with that power? Donovan, sensing the shift in Alex's demeanor, stepped forward. His voice was low, almost coaxing. You don't have to do this, you know. You could walk away. But the consequences of that decision will be severe. You'll be hunted. You'll never be safe. Alex's mind reeled. Walk away. But what would that even mean? They couldn't escape the truth of what they had learned here. They couldn't pretend to be normal again. Not after everything they'd seen. The web was too tangled, and the threads too tight. So, what happens if I say no? Alex asked, their voice steady despite the storm inside. The man at the table's smile widened. If you refuse, we'll have to make sure you disappear, and you'll never know the consequences of that choice. But if you say yes, he let the silence stretch between them. We can offer you something much bigger than you've ever imagined. Power, influence, the ability to change the world on your terms. Alex swallowed hard. The choice was in their hands. It was clear now that everything had been orchestrated to bring them to this point. The car, the FBI, Karen's involvement, Donovan's cryptic promises. They were all pieces of the same puzzle, a puzzle that Alex had been unwillingly thrust into. And yet, despite the magnitude of the decision, the answer seemed to be right in front of them. Alex realized that whatever choice they made, it would no longer be about survival. It would be about who they were willing to become. They took a deep breath, their eyes locking with the man at the table. I'm not your puppet, Alex said, their voice unwavering. But if I can stop you, if I can make sure this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands, I'll do it. For the first time, the man's smile faltered, just slightly. Donovan stepped forward, his face tight with both frustration and respect. You're making a mistake. Alex's hand hovered over the edge of the table, the weight of the decision pulling them in both directions. But the decision had already been made. The world didn't get to decide for them. Not this time. I'm not making a mistake, Alex replied, their voice strong. I'm choosing to stop this madness. The room fell into tense silence, broken only by the soft hum of the machines in the background. And in that moment, Alex knew this was far from over. The real game had only just begun. Twist. The man at the table's smile returned, this time colder than ever. I'm afraid you've misunderstood, Alex. You are the wrong hands. In that instant, Alex realized the terrible truth. They were never meant to stop the operation. They were meant to take it over. The door behind them slammed open, and as the lights flickered, Alex's world went black.